All right, ladies and gentlemen, what's poppin' and oppin'? Today I wanted to talk about Apple and the fact that they're going to be releasing a new cheap 5G iPhone and iPad. Yeah, that's right. I don't know why, I just felt like talking about it. You know, this is the channel where I talk about whatever, so without further ado, let's get into it.
I'm getting quiet now. Laying low when you reach, so I'm piping down. Making out, stack the bread.
Alright, so obviously, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of jokes about how, like, the new iPhone always costs $1,500 or whatever. And obviously, a lot of those jokes are true. It tends to be the new iPhones that get released tend to be crazy expensive. The iPhone SE, when they came out with that, was reasonably priced. And it must have been successful because it looks like they're going to be doubling down and making a new cheap iPhone with 5G capabilities. Apple reportedly preparing low-cost iPhone and iPad for March launch. Honestly, I feel like this is a good idea if I was in Apple shoes, only because it does a couple things. One, it opens up people to like trying the Apple ecosystem without an insane cost attached, which, you know, once you like the Apple ecosystem, you're a lot more likely to stay in it and buy more products. But if every product's insanely expensive to get into it, it has a high barrier to entry. By making something that's a good product but maybe a little bit cheaper, you let people get, you know, invested into the Apple ecosystem without needing to spend like $1,200 on an iPhone. And on top of that, I feel like iPhones like this are really the best option when it comes to like kids and old people. Listen, it's the reality that smartphones are just like something you kind of gotta have. That being said, it's a lot easier for me to like teach grandma and grandpa how to use an iPhone SE than it is to teach them how to use an iPhone 12 Pro. And they just don't really need a 12 Pro. All they're going to use it for is texting and calling. Why am I going to spend the money for something they're not going to use? Same thing, like, you know, whatever, your kid rides the bus to and from school, you need them to have a phone just in case anything happens, I don't know. Yeah, it's a lot simpler to buy them a cheaper phone than it is to give them like $1,000 piece of technology and just hope that they don't break it. Overall, I think both of those things means that it's just a good product to have in the Apple arsenal. I don't really think it's going to cut into the higher end phone sales very much, and it just allows more people to get involved in the Apple ecosystem or get more of their family members involved, which, in the grand scheme of things, when you're a company, is good. Apple could launch new products as soon as March 8th, according to a report from Bloomberg. The report says that Apple is preparing to announce a new low-cost 5G iPhone and iPad at the event and potentially a new Mac. The launch wouldn't be Apple's first choice since October, or would be the Apple's first, since October 2021 when it revealed new MacBook Pro laptops, and it's expected to be a virtual live stream launch, according to Bloomberg, as Apple has held virtual events since the start of COVID-19 pandemic in March 2020. I feel like this decade is really flying by, dude. It's insane to me. It's already February 2022. It feels like just yesterday I was like, man, 2020, this entire decade's gonna be so crazy lit. Maybe it's the pandemic, maybe it's the fact that, like, I don't know, I'm like an adult now or something, but either way, I feel like time is just flying by recently. I will say, I do think Apple announcing one does make sense simply based around it, like, being 5G. The iPhone SE is good, but with 5G being talked about so much and like officially activated, I do think it's something that a lot of people are going to want the capability to get on board with. Low-key, if I'm Apple too, like virtual events do just make more sense, even in a world where there is no pandemic, because I get to save on like, you know, having to have a ginormous auditorium. I get to save on having to have a bunch of security for the event because it's just all the workers there for an event. Like, overall, man, if I'm Apple after this, maybe it's just because I'm, like, antisocial. I'm kind of enjoying the whole there is no auditorium full of people there to watch me announce the new iPhone. Not to mention, if for whatever reason they don't do this because they practice a lot, but, like, if you do mess up the announcement, way easier to cut it and redo it if it's, like, not actually live. I don't know how it all works out, but you know what I'm saying. I just feel like something about not having to do it in front of an auditorium of live people staring at you would take a little bit of the pressure off. I think a low-cost iPad and iPhone make the most sense to add people to the Apple ecosystem too, because it says those are the products most likely to be announced. Just because those are the two most popular things I could see people really wanting, like a low-cost iPad to, you know, hand to their kids so they don't have to parent. Low-cost iPhone for grandma. Those are probably the two things that make the most sense to focus on a low-cost version of. I know they did an Apple Watch last year too, so that's just probably not ready for an update yet. Apple currently offers a low-cost iPhone called the iPhone iPhone SE, which was introduced in the spring of 2020 and retails for $399. It's the most recent iPhone model with Apple's Touch ID fingerprint sensor. The updated model could have the same design but a faster processor and 5G support, according to this report. The new iPad is expected to be an updated version of the iPad Air, according to the report, and that device was also last updated October 2020 and currently retails for $599. Alright, so, the iPhone SE and the iPad Air were probably about due for a successor based on Apple's calendar. I don't know necessarily that every 2 years you need a refresh. That being said, that is about right. Apple tends to update all of their products every 2 years or so with a major update. I mean, even with the iPhone, they tend to release one every year, but like a big update every 2 years. So, I would understand why they're not going to release a budget iPhone every year, but every 2 years with a larger update instead. I think the iPhone SE is great, but 5G is basically going to become the default, so if anything, they're just kind of feature-proofing that SE lineup a little bit more. I know 5G isn't necessarily super utilized yet, but it's something that I do think people are not going to want to be having a phone without. Like, even when 4G came online, why would you choose to buy a phone that couldn't use 4G once it was an option? And I mean, on top of it, if you've been watching this channel, dude, the FAA basically had to panic and a bunch of airports had to freak out. So at this point, I feel guilty not using 5G, dude. That's a joke, obviously. 4G LTE is plenty fast, but I would just understand if I'm going to pay over $400 out of my pocket for a new phone, I want it to be capable of doing whatever's available. Whether or not I have 5G yet or plan to get it in the future doesn't matter. I'm not going to buy something that's dramatically outdated compared to what's available. Apple's iPad business was the only major product line to report declining sales during the December quarter. Apple said that slowing sales of $329 iPads targeted at schools and volume purchasers was the primary reason for the business's decline. Apple's low-cost device launches are less important to the company than its traditional fall launches, where they reveal pricier and more profitable high-end iPhone models ahead of holiday shopping seasons. I mean, I don't really know what they expected, dude. Obviously, considering a lot of schools are partially online, or a lot of them are heading back to being online right now, and especially with COVID happening 2 years ago, I'm not surprised that purchase numbers for iPads in volume were down. On top of that, office buildings, a lot of them have shifted to working from home, a lot of their workforce. So, it almost seems and nobody expected this to happen this quickly, but getting into the volume iPad business was probably poor timing a couple years ago. Maybe it'll come back, but I'm sure for this year, the next couple years, business is going to be a little bit slower than it would have been, barring everything that's gone down the last 2 years. I do understand that, obviously, late fall when they announced the new iPhone and a lot more of the higher end models tends to be higher margins because you can charge a little more for it. That being said, I do think a lot of people underrate how important these low-end devices are because it's really what gets people into the Apple ecosystem and makes them consumers of the high-end stuff eventually, Like I said, let's say that you get your kid an iPhone SE instead of a normal iPhone. Well, when that kid grows up and can get a phone, he's been using iOS his entire life. What phone do you think he's going to pick? When grandma goes to get a tablet, all right, if she's already got an iPhone SE, what do you think they're going to get her? Probably something that's pretty similar. They're going to slap her on an iPad. But overall, I understand it's not the most appealing short term in terms of profits, but long term it is something that I think can make Apple grow more in the future. Apple could time the launch event with the official release of iOS 15.4, the latest version of the iPhone software. It's currently in beta testing and it's expected to include several new features, including the ability to use facial recognition to unlock a device while wearing a mask and a new emoji. An Apple spokesperson didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. I mean, it would make sense for them to coincide these things, obviously. The release of a new iOS with an announcement of a bunch of new products. It just makes sense from a marketing perspective to try to make it a little bit more of a bigger event. And if it's an iOS update alongside with it, then everyone who gets the update might look into it, Overall, that makes sense to me, dude. And like I said, I do think the SE line, cheaper iPads, is a good idea. Obviously, it makes sense sense that they're releasing an update to like be able to Face ID with your mask, because we all have to wear masks now, right? But like what is scary to me is that also means that Apple's facial recognition software has gotten to the point where it just needs like the top 20% of my face to know that it's me. Apple's just a couple robots away from RoboCop. You know what I'm saying? That's all I was saying by that. They glossed over that. Sure, it's going to be useful that I don't got to pull the mask off to like unlock my phone with Face ID. That is convenient, but they also are just kind of slipping in that like, yeah, our Face ID technology is pretty poppin' now, okay? You guys have been letting us scan your face for a while now, so this technology's pretty next level, all right? We're going to be able to scan your face while you're sleeping through a wall soon. X-ray vision iPhone. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. I know this was a little bit of a shorter one. You know, there's not a whole lot popping on this Saturday morning when I'm making this, so this is what we're talking about. But if you did enjoy it, be sure to press the like button. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought. And of course, be sure to subscribe if you're new. Turn on those notifications. If you really want to help me out, check out the intro song linked down below, along with a link to my podcast, The Scuffed Cast. And if you want to be really helpful, you can use code SCRUBBY at the G Fuel checkout. It's a great way to help me out and get a discount on G Fuel. And the last link down in the description is going to be a link to the merch store. So if you go get yourself a t-shirt, I would very, very much appreciate it. It really, really helps me out. And yeah, that'll do it officially. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't get anyone pregnant if you do. Make sure they're hot, and hopefully I will see each and every single one of you guys next time with another video. I'm out. Peace.